Hi, my name is Heaven. I'm new to YouTube. I'm sad that I'm here making this video. If you can please subscribe to my channel. I don't even know how to ask, but if you can please subscribe to my channel. This is my first video ever, obviously. I don't even know how this works. But I just wanted to come and just share my daughter's story and what happened to me and my family. I feel like it's important for me to come on here and talk about her because I'm going to make sure that her name is talked about. I'm going to make sure that I keep her name alive. I don't ever want to not hear about my daughter, and I don't want anyone else to not know what happened to my daughter. I feel like it's important. I feel like it brings awareness that this does happen. I would have never in a million years think this would ever happen to me, and it did. I'm making this video to bring awareness that this does happen, that this happens to families, to mothers, to fathers, to grandparents, to uncles, to aunts, to cousins. Like, this is real. You never think that anything with such like a small possibility will happen, and it does. I never thought that I would be making this video, but I'm prepared and I'm ready to talk about what happened to my family. So, on Valentine's Day, February 14th, it was just a normal day. I got Aria dressed in her Valentine's Day outfit, which I was so pressed for her to wear. I remember I brushed her hair, put on a bow. She hated bows. She was gonna wear them if she liked them or not. But I just remember getting her dressed. I made a Snapchat. I'll insert it here. Please excuse the language of the song. I might just blur it out. However I do that, I'll figure it out. But it was just another normal day. And I remember, like, I believe I gave her a bottle and we were just laying down. I think she, babies, she was only 29 days old. Go to sleep right after their bottle. So I gave her her bottle, and all of a sudden, like, she developed this cough. So she developed this cough and she instantly started crying, and she couldn't be consoled. She wouldn't take a bottle. She would not stop crying. I couldn't put her down to sleep. She was just upset. And at the time, I just assumed and thought that this was just like a crying spell. Babies cry, right? Like, I hear stories like all the time about when I was little and I would start crying, and nothing that you can do, or nothing that my parents could do to make me stop. So, like, I thought this was normal. So she just kept on crying, and she just could not be consoled. I would say a couple hours actually passed, and I ended up calling her pediatrician because I'm like, well, something must be wrong. She seemed hot. She seemed like she was losing her color a little bit. She was still breathing, like, but she just was crying nonstop. I called her pediatrician, and they asked me to take her temperature, which I did, and it was normal. So there was no indications of anything was wrong then, and the only thing that the pediatrician recommended was to try to feed her again. If she doesn't take the bottle, then take her to Children's Hospital, in which we did. We tried to feed her. She wouldn't take it, and that's obviously not like a baby. You pop a bottle in a baby's mouth and they're going to drink it, right? So we packed her up and we took her to Children's. And as soon as we got to Children's, You know, we walked in to the emergency room, and there was a nurse at the front desk, and she like looked at Aria, and then she looked up at me and her father, who was with us. So the first thing that she said was, "How long has she been like this?" And I was kind of taken back by the question, because it's like, excuse me, been like what? Like, obviously she's sick. Maybe she has a cold. I heard like she had a stuffy nose. I'm not sure. So I don't even remember what I said, like maybe an hour or two. I don't know. But she remained calm, and she told us to come back. I was thinking like, okay, well, we're about to go back to a regular room, like per normal. If you ever been to the emergency room, they take you back. You sit down, you'll wait for hours until a doctor comes back to talk to you. But this was 100% different. It was not like that at all. And I just remember like walking down a hallway and turning a corner and walking into the room. And there were already like 10 doctors in there, ready to go. So instantly, like, you know, they take her out her car seat and they start taking off her clothes and listening for her heart and doing all this stuff. And I'm in utter shock, because it's like, what is going on? Like, I'm thinking my child has a cold. I'm thinking, you know, it's around this time. It's dead winter. It's freezing outside, snowing. Like, my baby probably just has a cold. I'm not too concerned, because why would something like this happen? You don't think about this stuff. And they just instantly just started going to work on her. So the doctor started, I can't even tell you what they were doing. It just reminded me, like, if anyone watches like Grey's Anatomy or any medical shows, and the suspense of when someone comes back and they're in critical condition, and they're just ripping tubes out of the plastic, throwing plastic, trying to put IVs in. It was like that to a baby. And I lost it. Like, what is happening? And at that time, I knew something was wrong. So they were just asking me questions. How long has she been like this? Is she allergic to anything? Asking me how my pregnancy went. What did she eat today? Did she pee today? Did she poo? What did she eat? How many times did she eat? It was like an interrogation. I remember, you know, like a social worker came in. It was like trying to like console us, and it will be okay. And I just remember I called my mother, and I'm like, get here now, something's wrong, and she's having trouble breathing, and they have all these tubes hooked up to her, and the mask to help her breathe, and I can see she's struggling. But of course, you just still don't expect the worst to happen. Like, yo, something's wrong, but it might be a cold. Something's wrong, maybe she just got the flu. Like, you know, you think little things, you don't think of this big thing, like, oh my God, my child's about to die. And no one knew what was wrong. So they realized that while she was in the emergency room, she was having issues bleeding. And when they did her x-rays, they came back, and I believe it was in her left lung, that it was cloudy, indicating that she was like bleeding internally. Why? We don't know. So I'm thinking like, okay, I'm not a doctor. Maybe this is naive, but you know, I'm trying to diagnose my own child. So I'm like, okay, well, she's bleeding internally. Put a tube in there, get that blood out, patch her up, and let's go. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. Like, I was like, okay, well, now they know what the issue is, and we'll figure out why this happened, but just fix the initial problem now. Like, just tell me that she will be okay. I think I was only in the emergency room for like maybe 2 hours at most, but it felt like days, because no one knew what was wrong. The doctor or the head nurse or the head doctor, I don't even remember, like came back, and all they could say was, she's really sick. But what does that mean? Okay, she's really sick, but like sick, like how? She has a cold? I don't know. How does a little baby just get so sick and no one has answers? But after maybe like 2 hours at most in the emergency room, they moved us up to like the critical care unit. So they transported her up there, and I remember at that time it had to be like 10 to 15 doctors in a room just working on her. I can't even tell you what they were doing because I don't know. Just trying to control her bleeding. It was like she was drowning in blood. That's what I was thinking. So I remember the doctor like was just telling me like, you know, she's really, really sick and we're doing everything that we can for your daughter. But that was all that they could really say at that time. And then I remember they took us to this big conference room, so we were just sitting in there, just waiting for what, I don't know, but just waiting for them. They were doing their job, so I was just letting, you know, everybody do their job and, you know, try taking care of my daughter. And this doctor came back, one of the doctors on the team that was working with her, and he like sat me, and at that time it was just me, her father, and my mother, and he sat us down, and once again all he can say is, your daughter is really sick. We don't know why, we don't know how, we just know that she's bleeding a lot internally. Our goal is right now is to control the bleeding, give her transfusions, we're pumping more blood into her, we're just doing everything that we can. That was all that he said. He sent in some social workers who sat there with me and my family, and, you know, she was just there to try to comfort us. But at that time, I felt it in me. I just felt it in me that I needed to make some phone calls. I don't know why. I don't have any answers. I just know that my daughter is sick, and the way that they're presenting it to me, it's like she's about to die. Don't know why, but this is the circumstances right now. So I had like my boyfriend call whoever he needed to call. I called my daughter's godmother, like, get here now. Like, this isn't no normal, you know, little, I got a cold, I'm going to be sent home in a couple hours, something is wrong. I don't have answers, but get here now. My mom probably called my dad, like, it was chaotic. So her godmother came up to the hospital, and the doctors told us that they were going to take Aria back into surgery, and that they were going to inject dye into her. So they can see where the bleeding was coming from and why, like what burst in her basically. So they allowed us to say goodbye to her. So I remember, you know, her father kissed her, you know, not goodbye, like, you know, we're never going to see you again, but, you know, just you're about to go away for surgery and we will see you when you get back. And I remember, like, he kissed her, and then I remember I was sobbing like uncontrollably over her, but I kissed her, and I did not let them take her back until they allowed her godmother to come up so her godmother can say, you know, just to see her and, you know, wish her well on her surgery. And my mom, of course, said what she needed to say to her, and they took her back. I think I took Aria, and I'm sorry, I'm backtracking now, but I think we took her to the hospital maybe around like 9 p.m. And by this point, it was maybe like 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what time it was. All I do remember, it was like 15 doctors all in one room, like working on my daughter to try to save her life. It was like all of the nurses, everyone on the trauma floor, like, was doing everything that they could. So they took her back to surgery, and me and everyone, my family, went out to the waiting room, slept on couches. I couldn't even sleep. My stomach hurt so bad. It was in knots. Like, that was the worst feeling, I think, at that time I had probably ever felt. So it was all a blur. I just remember I was just trying to sleep and I couldn't. My stomach was turning. My head was going through 1,000 miles. Like, am I about to lose my daughter? This doesn't happen. This does not me. This won't happen to me. This doesn't happen to me. Like, I don't have these issues. And that's the naive part of me talking. But at that time, it's like, I don't have these issues. I don't have these problems. Like, what do you mean? This doesn't happen. This type of stuff does not happen to me. So fast forward, I remember like waking up, maybe probably only got like 30 minutes of sleep out of the hours that we were out there. And I eventually remember them rushing her back into the room. Like, everything was always such like a rush. Like, they were rushing to do everything. And when they were bringing her back in and on the thing that she was laying on, it was just like a rush. Like, it wasn't ease. It was like a panic at all times for her. So I remember they all rushed her back into the ICU room or whatever it's called. And I just remember the doctor saying to me again, she said, your daughter is really sick. And she was tried to explain to me, just like she tried to break it down to me, like, don't be alarmed when you see her, because this is what she looks like. You know, all night long she's been having fluids injected into her, blood transfusions, needles in and out of her. So she was really plumped. My 6 pound, Aria was 6 pounds when she was born. Probably gained maybe 2 pounds at the most. Like, she was only 29 days old. She was low-key unrecognizable, like, when they brought her back to me. And she said, I believe she said, like, you may want to just step out, go to the conference room, and we'll send someone down to talk to you. So at this point, it was still just my mother, her godmother, and her father. So we all went back to the conference room, and they sent in the doctor that did her operation. And he, like, we all were sitting down. I remember I was sitting at a table. He was sitting directly across from me. And I think it was like my mom, her godmother, and her father were all sitting on the couch. And he said that her arteries and her veins were like all mixed up. And he said that when he injected the dye into her body to see basically what was going on inside of her, they realized that, you know, there were veins and arteries that were connected that shouldn't be connected. They were crossing each other, and it was massive and unrepairable. So he said that one of her arteries, or one of her veins or arteries or whatever, it was like a massive like mix up basically in her lungs, and it burst. So she was bleeding internally, and there was nothing that they could do to fix it. So, and he also said something like, in the event that if it was fixable, it was just too intense for her. He said something like one of her arteries in her stomach was like connected to her brain, and that was wrong. But you can't cut off that artery and try to reconnect it to the right place or where it needs to go, because then you're cutting off the connection to her brain. You can't do that, because then she'll be brain dead. It was all these different type of issues. And the first thing that I said was like, what did I do? Like, what did I do wrong? babies don't take care of themselves. Like, you take care of your baby. Like, I've done everything right to me. Like, she was healthy, she was normal, took her to her doctor's appointments. Nothing, she had no issues indicating this whatsoever. I don't understand. Why is this happening? And he just, like, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to her father? Why is this happening to us? I remember he said at the end that he would be praying for us, and I remember him saying that he thinks that she only has a couple hours left. And we kind of had two options, that they can still continue to stop the bleeding. They will work all night on her again to try to stop her bleeding, but ultimately there is nothing else that can be done. They can still work on her all night and she can suffer, or you can take her out her pain, because she's fought long enough. By this point, she went on Valentine's Day night. It's now in the afternoon on the 15th. And I don't know, like, as a mother, like, when your baby's tired. So I remember I said, let me talk to her father, and we'll make the decision, and you come back in here and we'll tell you what needs to be done. And he said that he'll pray for us, and he's so sorry. And I think at that moment, when he said that, I realized, like, this is it. And as a mother, I went into straight mommy mode. I don't want my child to be in pain. I don't want her to suffer. Absolutely not. I will carry that pain. I want her to put her pain on me, and I will carry it for the rest of my life. I do not care. But my baby girl, our baby girl, is not going to suffer. Absolutely not. Me and her father talked, and we made that decision that to have the doctor stop. And at that point, my everybody that needed to be there came up to the hospital, and I remember everyone was in the conference room, and it was like the head doctor of the floor and other doctors that worked on her all night came into the conference room and, like, held me. They held me in Christopher's hand. And the doctor had tears in her eyes, like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm mad for you guys. This should not have happened. This doesn't happen. This is extremely rare. There was even a nurse or a doctor there, I don't remember. But she told my mom, like, I have never seen something like this before. I don't know the name of what this is. Like, this is just what happened. Like, this is just what it is. She was born like this, and no one was going to be able to detect it unless something had happened like this. But it was too late. And I just remember her just praying for us and crying with us. And I just remember saying, like, did I do something wrong? And them just consoling me, like, you did nothing wrong. Like, you were the best mom that you could have been for her. You are the best mom for her. You did nothing wrong. And I asked, like, is she going to be in pain? And they guaranteed me that she will not be in pain. That they were going to clean her up for us. And basically stop
treatment, and they said that she would only have a couple hours, like 3 hours at the most. Ooh. So I just remember Chris holding her and I was just playing music on my phone for her, like the songs that I would play for her when I was pregnant and when she was born, and some of the songs that I would play, you know, when she was here with us, and I was singing to her. We said everything that we needed to say. Everyone got to help, like, hold her grandparents, her godmother, and I remember, like, switching off. Someone was holding her, and I just remember, like, and I just remember holding her. And I remember how everything was set up, who was all in the room. And all of a sudden, like, I heard beeping on her monitor. And, like, I looked up, or the nurses, like, came in, and I looked up, and I saw her heartbeat dropping. And I said, the nurse was like, okay, her heart is stopping. And I remember my mom saying that it was time to let her go. And she died in my arms. I wouldn't have it any other way, though. I brought her into this world, and she passed away in my arms. And from that moment, I knew that my life would never be the same. I knew from that moment that her father's life would never be the same. Our family's life would never be the same. I had no idea what I was going to do when she passed away in my arms. It's like my heart died with her. But I remember just saying to her that it was okay. Mommy and Daddy will be alright. We will take her pain and we will carry it for her.